I'm going to call the public safety meeting to order for the month of July. I'm Lisa Dorsey, Chair, and I am accompanied by Nicole Shimoni and Brian McGinnis. First order of business is announcements. Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we will move on to comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda. Moving on to item number 4, seeing none, we'll start with the reports. The Westchester Fire Department.
Good evening, Justin McClure, Assistant Fire Chief. Council has the department's report for June. Call volume is slightly up. A lot of that is weather related. You'll see on the report that during the month of June, specifically on the 19th, we had a pretty good amount of storms come through the area, which actually ended up resulting in one house fire in Westtown Township, which was a result of a lightning strike. Just because we're halfway through the year, I just wanted to bring the council's attention because I know in January we had a discussion about the increase in call volume between 2023 and 2024. We're within 9 calls of the same time we were last year. So call volume is relatively steady. The percentages across the breakdowns are fairly similar. The responses across the 6 municipalities are similar with the exception of West Goshen, where there's a decrease due to some alarm corrections at a large apartment complex. We're not going there 50 times a year. And then the only other update we have is on the ladder. It is about 90% back together. The biggest thing we were waiting for was to make sure that the motor didn't sustain any damage from the crash. So they brought some experts in, they worked on the motor. The biggest thing it needed was some of the belts and hoses from sitting for a year were dry rotted. They've been replaced, but the motor turned over. So we don't need to put a new motor in the truck, which would have been a significant expense. So that's the good thing. We're pretty much only waiting on, other than some things to be put back together on the truck, is the front bumper, which took obviously the biggest amount of damage from the collision. We are changing the style of bumper that we put on that truck so that in the event that there's another incident, the bumper will be designed to take a little bit more of the impact without doing as much damage to the rest of the truck. So we are actually getting more than one price on that. And then there's also going to be a discussion about how long it takes each vendor to fabricate a bumper of that size and get it painted and get it. So that's the only the last piece. I'm hopeful that maybe by Labor Day that truck is back in service, which is good because the truck we're leasing has been sold. So as soon as that truck, which has served us well, leaves here, it will be going to its new home. I don't think it's in the United States, is it? Yeah.
When does that go? When
it will go as soon as we're done with it.
Oh, so we don't have to like.
Yep. Nope. They will come pick it up and they will take it, and it will probably get on a very large air drive somewhere not in and be flown somewhere not in the continental U.S. Other questions?
I do. There was a fire above Jake's Bar the other day.
Yes.
And it just because it's new, it's been all over. What was the cause of that? And I know.
So the cause is under investigation by the county fire marshal's office and the police department. Still under investigation. But I know a lot of people were concerned. There were some injuries as a result of that fire. One person is still hospitalized, undergoing treatment. The bar is back open. Bricktown was closed because they're on vacation. They will be allowed to be back open, and the tenants of the adjoining apartment suite, which is actually above Ridtown, as soon as they get an inspection, they will be back in their apartment. It was just the apartments above the bar that are still going to be affected. We hope to have some information in the next couple of days that we can release regarding the investigation of that fire.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions?
No, that was my question.
Yep.
Too.
I think we all had the same question. Okay, moving on to 4B, Westchester Police Department.
Hello, I'm Josh Lee. I'm the police chief. We go back one, Jeff. You always want to do this to me. I'm that guy in the middle holding the torch. That was 1.5 miles that I ran that night. I'm very proud of that. Very rarely will you hear me brag about myself, but I'm in the front too. So very happy about that. That was a law enforcement torch run, the first ever Westchester Special Olympics law enforcement torch run, where we symbolically ran the torch from Henderson High School in West Goshen through the borough and into Westchester University, where there was a celebration. This was on May 29th, where there was a celebration and a kickoff for the Special Olympics summer events, which take place every summer in State College. So great event there where law enforcement from all over Chester County came, did a quick tour of Westchester Borough and kind of put us on the map there. Jeff, you can move on now. Last month was a relatively steady month as we look at the numbers. And next month I will come to this meeting with a report that's going to dig into noise for the last year and what that looks or sounded like last year, and what type of reporting we've done, and where we're at with the charge pretty much the council has given us and other departments in the borough to deal with those nuisance type things. So I'll have a lot more data for you when it comes to noise next month. Crimes are rather steady. There's nothing remarkable there. I do have a little more for you after this part of the report. And then if you have any questions, please ask then. For the next slide, if you look in the door there, that's K9 Nitro. K9 Nitro is our newest police K9. We now have 2 police K9s. One, you'll remember, is K9 Odin, who is trained in narcotics detection and patrol. This is K9 Nitro. He's a 1-year-old Belgian Malinois. He's trained in patrol and explosives detection. Jeff, we go to the next slide. It's the same information, but a cuter picture, I think. K9 Nitro will help to enhance public safety, especially at special events of ours in the borough. We're proud to now have the K9 unit rounded out and complete with 2 K9s. And K9 Nitro is handled by Corporal Simcox.
The little dog behind you approves.
I also want to mention, I don't have it on the report, but I want to mention for next month, August 5th, is the National Night Out. I know you're familiar with that. National Night Out will occur at Henderson High School between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. on August 5th. Our PIO, Dave March, partners with Keith Krowski, the Director of Parks and Recreation, and also partners with West Goshen Township and West Goshen Police to bring a really great event. So encourage you all and anybody in the audience or listening to attend that, and keep your fingers crossed for no storms that evening, August 5th. I also wanted to touch on some more recent events here in the borough. Certainly things that you've probably seen on the news and may or may not be more concerned about. Certainly, I think you are. But I wanted to remind everybody here or anybody in the audience exactly what role the Westchester Police Department plays in the safety of our community, especially surrounding public events. We come to these meetings and we talk about special events and events that are planned for. We've been talking for so long about the Christmas parade, and you talk about the finances and all that stuff. And a lot goes on behind the scenes that you don't necessarily know about when it goes to the public safety aspect of those events. And I just wanted to touch on a little bit of that. First and foremost, please know that we all, the police, council, the public, we all play an important part in community safety when it comes to these events and when it comes to everything else. Please also know that we as a police department, in partnership with all of the organizations and people that come in for these events, we plan for every special event, and we evaluate every different event individually and bring up concerns safety-wise and try to mitigate those concerns as best we can through planning. We plan for known gatherings and demonstrations or known protests that we know ahead of time in a similar manner, and we evaluate them as well. When it comes to gatherings, we take a layered approach in law enforcement and in planning. We plan and we gather intelligence on events before they happen. We look to see are similar events being held in other places and what have happened at other events. We gather as much information from internally and from other law enforcement partners in the region and even nationally to plan for events when they come to Westchester. When the event's going on, we continue to operate off of that plan through oftentimes less visible police officers or even undercover police officers and more visible police officers, certain police officers in uniform. We maintain high visibility when it's appropriate, and we monitor real-time information like crowd behavior, crowd size, crowd movement, as well as real-time information when it comes to social media, what people are saying about different events, whether the tenor of that event is a happy type of event or whether it's a more tense type of event, and think protest versus restaurant festival or demonstration versus Christmas parade. And sometimes we have different emotions, but we monitor that both ahead of time and in real time. Specifically here in Westchester on June 14th, what could have been a terrible tragedy, what could have set the tenor of certainly this meeting and other meetings to come very different, a tragedy was averted, not because of luck, but the tragedy was averted because of pre-planning, planning for an event that we knew about, communication with the public and from the public, appropriate professional policing, appropriate decisions by police officers on the street in real time, and appropriate investigation and follow-up by those officers, by detectives, and by other law enforcement partners in the region and nationally. All of that came together to avert what could have been a much worse, or what could have been a tragedy. So know that that wasn't by luck. It wasn't because we are Westchester and we live in a bubble that is somehow magically protected. It happened because of things going the right way because of a plan in large part. Now, realistically and pragmatically speaking, I'm the police chief. I'm also a human being. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a boss. I can't guarantee people's safety. I wish that I could. We live in a dangerous world. And while I can't guarantee anybody's safety, it's my job to lead the police department in such a way that we do everything that we can to enhance safety so that I can do as much as I can every day, day in and day out, to put my officers in a position to be able to do what they can day in and day out to make Westchester a safer place. But please know that when we move around in this world, we take on certain risks. When my kids go to the bus stop, they take on a certain risk, very minimal. If my kids were to go to a Christmas parade, maybe they're taking on more risk. Those are decisions that we make as human beings, and I encourage everybody in the public to do that for themselves and to do that consciously and to think about what it is that they do when they're moving about, certainly in Westchester, but in the world. And let's just think of the last 3 months. I've been a police officer here for almost 27 years, the chief proudly for 1.5 years. In the last 3 months, I've had 2 police officers fired upon by an individual that tried to murder 2 of my police officers. That's never happened here in the history of the Westchester Police Department, certainly not in my almost 27 years. A few weeks after that, we have this event uptown, which gains national notoriety for the scale of what happened. We had a subject that was arrested who brought a weapon, multiple weapons, to a public event, a protest. Later, that subject was arrested with more than a dozen IEDs. That's never happened here in Westchester. Just yesterday, my police officers responded to a fire that you heard a little bit about before. Just yesterday, police officers that weren't even on duty responded to a fire where one person was unconscious on the sidewalk after having probably fallen trying to save her life from a second-story window, where 2 people were stuck on a roof, avoiding the heat and the flames from that fire. The police officers, who weren't even clocked in yet, responded to that fire, cared for the person on the ground, put their own lives in harm's way to rescue the people off of the roof. We'd be having a much different conversation today and moving forward about that fire if it weren't for the heroic actions of those 3 police officers, very, very specifically. That's not by accident. It's because we plan, we prepare, we train. None of that happens by accident. It happens intentionally, and it costs money. But I talk about risks. As police chief, I'll continue to work to do as much as I can to support the safety and the well-being of the community. And I do that in partnership, not only with other police agencies, but with your support. There are going to be times that we have asks and we have things that we need. And every time we've asked and we've needed, you've provided us with what we've asked for and what we've needed. That's not by accident. That's very important. We're not asking for things that we don't need, but certainly we will continue to come before you, before council. I will continue to come before you, before council at large, and make those asks. You are fortunate to have 44 of the most professional, most well-trained police officers in this borough. It's important that we keep it that way. Please know that every time you see an arrest, every time you see something on the news or hear of something that has happened, it's not only those officers that are going out in the moment, lights and sirens to go bring calm to some sort of tragedy. It's not only that. It's the hours and hours of preparation ahead of time. And it's the dozens, if not hundreds of hours of investigation afterwards that bring things to resolutions. It's by no accident and by no mistake that events like the Christmas parade go off, quote, without a hitch. It's not by accident. It's because of the time and the effort that the police department puts in conjunction with those people that also plan for those parades and those events. And we make them what we are. But everything that we do in police work, certainly, but in life in general, comes with some sort of risk. And I just think it's important that we recognize that, we acknowledge that, and that we talk about that. And that from my standpoint, that's part of what I'm here for. So I hope that gives you a little bit of information on where we're at and what we've done. A couple of people have asked me, when I say a couple of people in leadership positions have asked me, what are we doing differently since June 14th or since this has happened? And I'm here to tell you, not a whole lot. We're continuing on the path that we're on. We're continuing with the planning and the preparation and the training. We're certainly learning from any missteps that we may have taken so that we don't take those missteps again. But there are no about faces or 180s. We're headed in the right direction, and I plan on keeping it headed that way. Thank you. Certainly, if there's any questions, I'm sorry for going probably over my allotted time.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions? Any
No,
questions
thank
from
you.
the audience?
Thank you.
Chief, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
your team.
Thank you.
Okay, good fellowship.
Good evening, Justin Robbins, Deputy Chief, Good Fellowship. So we had a record-setting month in June. We actually handled 788 dispatched emergencies. 173 of those were here in the borough. Everything on our report up until the last page is really within norm for what we see. If you just had to go down to the last page, one thing I do want to talk about, and I had included in an email to the borough, our number 3 most frequent call type, and this is across all of the municipalities we serve, is that emotional disorder, those behavioral health patients. We're obviously seeing an uptick in that. I'm excited to say that Good Fellowship is the first EMS agency in the state. We were approved as of July 1st to start transporting those patients, not to an emergency room. My entire career, we take those people to emergency rooms, but they don't need that. They don't need an emergency room. They need the proper services. So as of July 1st, Good Fellowship was approved for a regional protocol to transport patients after they've been screened by our crew members to Haven Behavioral Hospital right here. We're going to run that as a trial for a few months with the state, and then we're hoping to expand that to the rest of Chester County so that we can get those patients the appropriate care that they need instead of taking them to an emergency room who's there to treat a medical problem when these patients really need that behavioral health treatment. So we're really hoping to see that number go down with this new care.
What kind of training does your team have to be able to identify? I mean, there's sometimes where a layperson might be able to pick that up, but is there special training that they have to be able to discern the difference?
So each level of EMS provider, EMT through paramedic, does get a certain amount of training on behavioral health emergencies. And then all of our employees, volunteers go through CIT training, crisis intervention training. And then we also go through additional behavioral health trainings every year. So we pride ourselves on being able to work with these patients and talk that not just, we don't want to pick you up, put you in an ambulance and drive you to the hospital. That doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve the hospital. And it potentially takes a bed from someone that may need it for a medical emergency. So now we're just not serving anyone appropriately. So We've upped our training over the past few years. And with that, the state approved this regional protocol for us to start taking these patients where they need to get their appropriate treatment.
So is there anything additional that you need, or you're July 1, you're ready to go?
July 1, we already started.
Great.
Any other questions?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Although that
Any questions
brings-
from the, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it did bring me back to the police. Did we have the professional, were we gonna be introduced to the professional this month? Or was
the,
it next month?
Counselor, right?
Yes.
I'm back. Next month, yes, the plan that I mentioned to you last month was this month. I've been derailed slightly on that, but next month, I'd be happy to introduce who I know is listening right now, is Jamie Weiss, who's our police social worker, who is literally hitting home runs from day one. We'll be excited to bring you some more information next month.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we will move on to old business. Approve the June 2025 meeting minutes. Any questions on those?
No.
Okay, moving on to item B, discuss proposed humane pet retail shops ordinance in the Borough of Westchester, which I believe it was as attachment to the meeting. Anyone going to present or the ordinance? Sure.
Hi, and good evening, and thank you so much for the time today, as well as for considering this ordinance that is up. So this is an ordinance that prohibits the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits in retail pet shops in the borough of Westchester. The aim of an ordinance like this is to provide an obstacle to the puppy mill to pet store pipeline. So there are currently no pet stores that sell puppies or kittens, or kittens, I should say, in Westchester, to my knowledge. And so this would prevent any pet stores from doing that in the future. And I should have said at the beginning, my name is Ariel Lefkowitz. I'm a public policy specialist with the Puppy Mills team at Humane World for Animals.
Thank you. Does anyone on council have any questions or concerns?
Just a question. When I was reading through this, it focused on, the definition is the pet retail stores throughout. And I was, my head went back and forth on this. I'm like, well, should we be saying retail store, or should we be saying pet retail store? Does it not matter? Because if you're the way it's defined is if you're selling a pet, you become a pet retail store, or should we be saying, should we just be putting retail stores in there too, just to cover all our bases? So it's, you can't sell them in pet retail stores. You also can't walk into, a shoe store and buy one either, which is, like I said, maybe de facto it turns into a pet retail store once it has a pet for sale, but I don't know if it's just something that might just make it a little more.
So that's
concrete.
probably a question that I could turn over to the legal team, but at least from my experience, the way that these are written, whether it's a pet store, or pet shop, or retail pet store, any variation of those, it's just defining the place, the brick and mortar place that is typically selling like pet services, pet related goods, and then in this case blocks them from selling puppies.
And I think it does state right there, commercial establishment. So I mean that.
Yeah, it's kind of, that's where my brain went back and forth, because does a shoe store become a retail pet store as soon as
Hell of a
it
shoe store.
starts to, yeah, hey, you want to walk your dog, you get some shoes and you get some sneakers and a pet. But yeah, I didn't know if it kind of technically any store turned into a retail pet store once it had an animal in there for sale.
So
But-
I would imagine that it's based off of what else is in your code already, is whether a commercial establishment is already used in the code, whether retail pet store is already used in the code. That sometimes factors into the terms that are chosen. I am speaking as a representative of an organization that's has expertise on this ordinance in general, but how it's written up by municipality to municipality depends on the specific code. Yeah.
So Sean, is that maybe something we need to just cross-check with Kristen?
So we'll refer this then to the work session. Maybe we'll have an answer by next Tuesday. Okay.
As I like it, I like, I'll
Well,
make sure it's comprehensive.
yeah,
Yeah.
understood. Yeah.
Any other comments from council or the audience?
Hi, I'm Grace Kelly Herbert from Finding Shelter Animal Rescue. Thanks for having us back. Just to address your question about that, the PA Bureau of Dog Law Enforcement, they issue kennel licenses throughout the Commonwealth to people who house, breed, sell 25 or more dogs in a year. So it probably, the ordinance would fall under, like if a store is going to be housing and selling puppies, it wouldn't affect cats and rabbits, but for dogs, they would have to have a license issued by Pennsylvania Dog Law Enforcement. So just that's something that might be considered in that verbiage as well. So whether you say pet retail sales or retail sales, it doesn't matter. If they're transferring animals, they would have to be properly licensed, whether they were a shoe store or something else, because you can't transfer animals. Like I can't, as a rescue, and a person with a pet store who sells puppies, they can't go ahead and sell puppies without that license issued by the state. Just something to consider for that. And then I know last time I was here and I told you this, a little puppy we lost named Bert. I do want to give you a good update. This is Bert's mom. Her name is Bridget, and we were able to rescue her. She is doing well. She has to go to the cardiologist and have some medical stuff. But I wanted to show you that through rescue work, there is light at the end of the tunnel for some of these animals. And though things didn't work out well for Bert, there are no more puppies that are going to be born from his mom because she's in our care now. So I just wanted to give you that good update on her.
Thank you. Daryl?
Daryl Cook, South Walnut Street. Who's responsible for regulating rescues?
State, dog law enforcement, and then anything that would be through the SPCA, through humane law enforcement.
Is everybody aware of a rescue getting in trouble with 4 citations in the last month?
Oh, Rex Sturgis, yeah.
In the borough?
No.
Oh,
It-
okay.
I do think we do have a component in this ordinance that says if a rescue gets out of compliance and has their animals in a store for show, like if you go to Concord Pet Store, they have the cats there. I think we talked about the last, that we can tell them that they can't even do that. Like if we have that knowledge, we're allowed to say you can't even show your pets in a store if they're not for sale. So there's a component in there, Daryl, that addresses that, at least for this particular piece of the puzzle.
Tom Walsh, 318 West Minor Street, Westchester. Some of us are at the age when many years ago, you could buy in Westchester around Easter little chicks in multicolors. And I'm wondering, does this have to be included in this regulation? Or is it covered by other aspects of state law? Thank you.
Mr. Walsh, your question is specific to chickens?
Yes, yes. the baby chicks that used to be available, we could purchase here in Westchester, one or two places.
Yeah.
So just briefly, all this ordinance would affect would be a pet store's ability to sell dogs, cats, and rabbits. So chickens would not be affected. And I'm not sure what the borough ordinances are or state ordinances are in terms of selling chickens or baby chicks. But that is a separate issue to this. It's a non-issue under this ordinance, I guess.
And we can take that away and have our solicitor weigh in on that.
Yeah, I know last time you guys were here, you suggested not a lot of locations yet have adopted the whole don't sell any pets rule in their municipality. That's something that could be out there in the future. I think we kind of aligned on starting with what is out there, what's most prevalent, and how do we kind of start there, just knowing that the good news is we don't really have this problem today. You know, the idea is to put this in a position so that we don't have this problem, you know, in the future, but something to consider in, you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments? Okay, should we put this 3-0 for next week? Okay, moving on to new business. 6A, discuss traffic issues and pedestrian safety along East Virginia, North Matlack, and North Franklin streets. The issue is residents are seeking traffic study or possible traffic calming solutions for safety of the neighbors and children walking in an area without sidewalks. And Sean, I know you've done some work on this and have some recommendations. I know we also received some material from the chief last month.
Traffic safe. Hi, Sean Metrick here, Borough Manager. I just wanted to show a 2-slide PowerPoint that talks about the locations that Mr. Baker was talking about. He talked about these locations in the northeast quadrant of the borough where he exhibited or he saw cars rolling through stop signs, cars speeding through, and it was dangerous to walk. And he drew very special attention to the roads that are highlighted in yellow and presumed that some of this is being caused by cut-through traffic where people don't want to wait at that traffic light at Marshall and High Street. So they're cutting through these wider streets in these neighborhoods. The problem with some of these streets, most of these streets, is that there's no sidewalks. So if people want to walk in this neighborhood, they're walking in the cartway. So I certainly understand that point of view, and that's a problem that's going to take longer time to solve. I think looking at this myself and talking a little bit with some staff that with the large cartways, that's the width of the roads up there are pretty wide. We've looked at this area as an opportunity for stormwater improvements through the Taylor Run / Brandywine Creek watershed, which we'll be looking at in more detail next year. There's also a gap in the sidewalk network in this area. I didn't finish my diagram, but I started drawing where the sidewalks are, and I found out that really there aren't a whole lot of sidewalks up there. So I think everything that we heard a couple of months ago was accurate. Just want to say that the roadways, cars travel the speed that the roadway is designed to, not necessarily what it's posted to as a speed limit. So if you have a big, wide, open roadway and you post it for 25 miles an hour, no one's going to go 25 miles an hour on it. Everyone's going to go 40 or 45. So I think we have a mismatch between the way those roads are designed and how we want people to drive through these neighborhoods. And that design problem is going to take a little bit longer to solve. So I don't think that going through the work of a traffic study to try and get it reduced to 15 mph would really slow cars down, because you can put whatever number you want on the roadway up there, and if it remains wide open and without on-street parking, you're going to still have those observed speeds. I think the solution here is to slowly over time change the design of the roadways and add sidewalks where we can, add stormwater features where we can to help slow down traffic and treat this as a zone of the borough that we want to target for traffic calming. And on the next slide on the presentation, there's a that word that's underlined actually is a hyperlink that opens a map that's part of some analysis that we've already performed that shows gaps in the sidewalk network in the borough. It may or may not work with.
It did work if you clicked on it in
Good.
the attachment. It does work.
Fantastic. So
I just did, yeah, I just had questions on the difference between but the color coding, like it wasn't
Yeah.
clear to me. I mean, I think I know what it is because I'm familiar with that
Yeah.
neighborhood.
green, we have sidewalk, and I'm colorblind with green and red, so this is terrible colors for me. Green has sidewalks on both sides of the street. Orange is just on one side of the street, and red, there's no sidewalks. So right away, somebody who has proper cones and rods in their eyeballs can see right away where our sidewalk gap is. So you're going to see that as part of our capital target and plan overall. We talk a lot about traffic calming, making it safer to cross Price Street, making it safer to cross High Street at Biddle, making it safer to cross New Street at Gay Street. And this is all integrated with the information and the work that the police do on traffic analysis. So what you heard from Mr. Baker is correct. And we're going to slide this into plans and show some progress on that. It's going to take some time. In the meantime, we're going to get out there and we're going to look at the crosswalks and try and deploy some temporary signage at the intersections. Oftentimes, intersections are where you see the most crashes because you have conflict of motion with vehicles and people. So you want to make sure people slow down. So we're going to try some mobile signage and look at repainting and doing things with paint at the intersections where we can make it more obvious that you should be slowing down when you reach a stop sign. And I think that's something we can do right away.
Okay, and we can
Public Works.
and we can put crosswalks in where there aren't any today, because I don't think there are any. If you're off of High Street, you get into the neighborhood, I don't think there are any crosswalks.
There's a couple and they need a refresh
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Sean, with sidewalks in the areas in which you're talking about maybe potentially putting them in, would that have to be eminent domain or would that be shortening the streets?
I think in a location like this where we're not using a lot of the on-street parking, and that's in lower density neighborhoods, there's a lot of off-street parking. The opportunity to do it in the cartway is there, which wouldn't need eminent domain is only needed when you have to acquire more right of way than you already have. We probably have enough right of way to put it on what most people would perceive their private property, but it's what is the borough's right of way. So we wouldn't have to go through an eminent domain process to do that. I'm thinking more in terms of like, what's a smarter way, an easier way to do it? Do you want to go on someone's property and tear up their landscaping and their fencing and tell them to move their mailbox? Or do you want to put it in the cartway where it's simpler and easier to do and you're not losing any parking and you're actually two birds with one stone, right? If you make the cartway narrower, you're going to slow down the traffic, and that's what we're trying to do. So in some cases, we might suggest it on the private property side of the curb that's today. And in some places, we would suggest moving the curb in towards the center line to do it, but that's going to need more analysis to figure out what we should do.
I also like the idea of killing two birds with one stone of like the stormwater bump outs and stuff. Kind of strategically placing them for the opportunity for them to do kind of double duty. So that's good.
So I think it's an opportunity if council wants to consider directing the Transportation Advisory Committee to start working on a traffic calming circulation plan elements of what's going to be our comp plan update next year. That was a thought I had that would dovetail nicely with all of these ideas. So, but that's still something we can talk about next month or down the road.
Yeah. And you and I talked about it. It makes sense to me. And then we've got some steps that we can take in the interim to hopefully try and slow things down.
So if there's no other feedback from the committee, I'll just go ahead full steam with that with the team, and we'll start seeing some paint and signs out there and see how it goes.
Makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any comments from the public?
Hi, Lisa Kearns, West Biddle Street. Lisa, you've probably heard some of this when I've been out and about during the campaign. A lot of issues with speeding on West Washington Street, particularly the 300 block, the alleys around Veterans Memorial Park, which is a little people's park. You have little youngsters there, and Chestnut Street, particularly, and I think Chestnut is a state road, particularly the intersection of High and Chestnut, which is right by St. Agnes. People crossing the street, again, you get a lot of children crossing the street there, elderly heading up to church. That's the one place in this town that doesn't have a street light. Chestnut Street has lights all the way along until you get to between the 100 and the 200 block. And then it just rolls from the 200 right into 300 down the hill. And that's a lot of speed. And the crosswalk there is a crosswalk painted at one time in its life, but it's so faded you can't see it. So the residents have talked about, can we get that repainted? And also perhaps a sign there saying, pedestrian crosswalk, or pedestrians have the right of way, whatever those signs say, just to slow people down on Chestnut Street. And the chief and I did talk a little bit about those other roads. Maybe we at least put up those signs that tell the people how quickly they're going. And I think that would tell the residents how quickly those people are really going, because 25 miles per hour may seem really fast when you're seeing them, but it's within the speed limit. So having those kind of signs there temporarily would tell the people who are going too fast that they're going too fast, and might also tell the residents, are these people really going too fast, or is it just seeming too fast? So I'd like to maybe expand what you're looking at, Sean, as far as areas that could use some calming devices, because they often talk about that they want stop signs or they want speed bumps. I don't think we use speed bumps in this town. I'm not sure why, probably because you couldn't do snow equipment or something like that. I don't know. But if there was something we could do, the residents would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll take that away.
And Sean, with the traffic group, weren't we supposed to do a comprehensive traffic study because of the some of the larger trucks that were traveling through neighborhoods that shouldn't have been traveling through neighborhoods? Say, for instance, they were going down Bernard Street or Wayne Street.
Is the question, should we be looking at what roads are designated truck routes in the borough, and does that make sense?
Yes, correct.
That's come up before. We haven't delved into that with the traffic engineer.
Yeah, I mean, I think we absolutely should. I mean, because that could impact some of these areas where someone may want to take a shortcut to go up to Route 100 or, High Street or whatnot, or cutting through a regular neighborhood.
Any other comments? Okay. Moving on to 6B. Motion to approve special event applications. Discuss the Lafayette events to be finalized in preparation for July 26th.
Evening, Keith Krowski, Director of the Parks and Rec Department. After last month's meeting, when the Historic Commission presented their original plan, they took that off the table and came up with a new idea. And the new idea is much simpler. Does not require any borough services. All the pedestrians or all the folks involved with the event will follow normal pedestrian traffic laws and go about their business. So it's really not a special event request anymore. So it can be removed from the special event items.
Yeah, I read it. It looks like a nice.
It looks
great
like
event.
a nice really event.
Any questions, Mr. Walsh?
On Lafayette Street, if we're going to stay on the sidewalk, can we have it blocked so no, because they like to walk on the one block of Lafayette Street, but a vehicle block that temporarily?
Then you're getting into a special event request. If you're asking for a street to be closed, then you need to have the special event request. That's what I thought we were avoiding. Okay.
Okay, any other comments? All right, moving on to B2, 10/18, Unite for Her 5K Fun Run.
This is, for the last several years, the largest 5K that takes place in the borough of Westchester. And after last year, in discussions with the police department, we decided to veto the normal 5K route. And then after some discussion with the organizers in the police department, mainly Sergeant Malicki, we kind of took a tact of basically think of this as the old bike race minus the bikes. So they're going to shut down the downtown, similar to like we do for the restaurant festival, and or like they did for the bike race, but instead of having bikes racing around the center of town, it's going to be people running. It'll be a closed circuit event. It will be enforced like the restaurant festival as far as from a police perspective, and that will ensure that their runners and the extreme numbers, I think they upwards are around 2,000 runners in different shifts, will be able to complete this organized run in the time set forth. So it will not be your normal southwest loop run that goes through that area of town. This will be a downtown run. And like I said, the best way I can describe it is literally just like the bike race minus the bikes.
And you said it's 2,000, approximately 2,000
Approximately.
participants.
Yeah.
How many people attend?
Again, from the old run, not many people just attend to watch it. I think you'll get the normal people that are sitting at the streets and the cafes just enjoying it as it goes by. They're probably going to draw some extra folks into town. It's an earlier day event, so it shouldn't be, the after hours crowd that'll be there too, like they would enjoy, say, for the bike race back in the day. But I think with the plan we have set in place, especially from the police perspective, this is going to be, while it involves more of our services, it'll be easier to run throughout the day as compared to the 2,000 people's running down Church Street.
And is there any requests for assistance outside of the services from the
As
hosts?
far as extra, no, nothing at all. They've been fully informed and aware that their costs are going to go up significantly, and they're okay with that. Again, if we estimate roughly about $50 a person to run 2,000 runners, they're bringing in a nice chunk of change to cover the cost.
Okay. Any other comments from council? Any comments from anyone in the audience? Okay, moving on to the Chris King.
Times for the run are 8 to 9 for setup, 9 to 10:30, 11 o'clock roughly for the runnings, and then roughly 11 to 12, 10:30 to 10:30 to 12 for the cleanup.
And the Chris Kindle Market?
Repeat event run and organized by the downtown Westchester. There are no substantive changes from last year. It's a successful, well-run event that's going into its third or fourth year. The police and myself have no issues with it going forward.
I did have a question on this one. The last year it went to 7 and this year it's going to only go to 6. Is that
That's
the
correct.
proper understanding?
Yes.
Okay. But I'm curious, what did people just kind of drop off that late? Was it getting cold or something? Or?
I'm not sure which John's reasoning was behind that. Maybe it was to allow for more of the normal downtown atmosphere afterwards. But his application is from 11 to 6 for the actual event with 6 to 8 for the cleanup.
And last year it was 2 days, right?
That was 2 years ago.
Before, yeah, it was 2 days.
And then I think it was on the second day 2 years ago when they got some significant weather that kind of fizzled that out.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from council? Any comments, questions from the audience? All right.
Thank you.
And moving on to item number 7, other business. Seeing none, we will move on to item number 8 and adjourn at 6:53. Thanks.